The WHCA announced that comedian Amber Ruffin, who has called the president a toddler with his pants pulled down, will be the entertainment for this year's Correspondents' Dinner. Does the White House have a reaction to this choice, and will the president be attending the dinner this year?
Certainly an interesting choice. I have the president's invitation on my desk. I have the invitation for myself on my desk as well. Haven't talked to the president about it. When he makes his decision, I will let you all know. But definitely an interesting choice of the comedian. I'll talk to the boss about it and see what we decide. Sure.
Is it? I mean, did they actually say to you that you need to go after both sides equally?
They said what they said was that they had been. They had people bring it up in the past, how uneven the comedy was.
Because usually the comedy is directed at whoever is the president at the time. So even when you went to the Obama White House Correspondents' Dinner, which he did attend, there were tons of jokes about him. And he was probably more aligned with the media than any other most recent president.
Yeah, I think it's just that burns on Trump hurt badly, and then it trickles down to everyone who's around him, because y'all also guilty. So I think they got their feelings hurt, and they want that false equivalency that the media does. They want that. It feels great. It makes them feel like human beings, but They shouldn't get to feel that way because they're not.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the White House Correspondents Association, basically a group of Trump deranged journalists who cover the White House. Now, we've talked about the White House Correspondents Association before because the Trump administration has basically taken back control of the press pool, specifically the press, the reporters that can cover the president more intimately, right? They are controlling that. And now they're also about to rearrange the media seats. Okay, so in the press room, they're going to rearrange the seats, pushing some legacy media outlets like CNN, MSNBC, and others to the back, right? They're going to the back, and newer, more independent media, they're coming to the front, right? So basically, they are participating in diversity, right? Which apparently is something that liberals don't like anymore, right? Because I'm just saying, they're allowing outlets that have been historically marginalized, and they just haven't had these opportunities to get opportunities, right? And for whatever reason, these liberal media journalists from legacy media outlets, they are freaking out about this, right? They're really upset with the fact that the White House is taking back control of the press room, right? Because the leader of the White House Correspondents Association is not bipartisan or nonpartisan or unbiased. Like, I mean, the dude is clearly very pro-Democrat.
He has a hard time running against Vice President Harris because she's a black woman. You remember, actually, when he would tussle with the women that would ask him questions, our colleagues on the White House beat. Reporters. You know, he held his kind of most angry self for black women, right? If they asked him a question, he would have the worst things to say about them. So you're seeing that, right?
I can think of three off the top
of our head. And when he talked about Joe Biden got worse, Harris was born like that.
Yeah, so now that you guys got a feel for who is running the White House Correspondents Association, it should be no surprise that this group of people, at least initially, chose to have Amber Ruffin, a comedian, and I use the title comedian very lightly here, okay, because I haven't really heard anything funny from Amber Ruffin, but left-wing Trump deranged comedian Amber Ruffin was chosen to do a comedy set for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, we don't know if President Trump is going to attend. It's not expected that he will attend, but regardless, in my opinion, I don't think that the White House Correspondents' Dinner is something that we should continue to do, right? I just don't think it's a good look to have journalists, the media, the president, the politicians, the administration, all in the same room, schmoozing, drinking, eating fancy food, right? Doing this dinner party, right? It honestly symbolizes everything that regular normal people don't like about DC, right? That is what it symbolizes. So I personally don't think it's something that should continue to happen. If President Trump doesn't go, then it is what it is, right? But it seems as if the White House Correspondents Association wants to encourage the president to go because they have now canceled the left-wing comedian Amber Ruffin, who was supposed to do a comedy set during the dinner. And one of the reasons why they canceled her is because Amber Ruffin ended up calling the administration a bunch of murderers, right? And then they basically told her that, hey, you know, if you're going to do this, you have to not be just Trump deranged, right? You have to actually, you know, be fair, right? And, you know, have jokes for both sides. Don't just make it a Trump deranged show, right? Don't do that. And apparently she had a problem with this. And that led to her being canceled. And liberals are upset with this, right? They're accusing the liberal White House Correspondents Association of bending the knee to Trump.
So the White House Correspondents Association definitely just bended the knee to Trump. They just dropped comedian Amber Ruffin from the lineup. And this will be the first time in years that a comedian has not done a set at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She did an interview talking about it, and basically she said that they were like, hey, we want you to be really balanced with your political commentary and, you know, not attack the president too much. And of course she was like, no, I'm not doing that.
You're kind of a bunch of murderers. I mean, so like they were like, you need to be, you know, equal and make sure that that you give it to both sides and blah, blah, blah. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be freaking doing that, dude.
This message is specifically for Amber Ruffin. From one black woman to another, I'm outraged. You were lifted up publicly as the entertainment for the WHCA dinner in 3 weeks. And publicly this weekend, you were canceled. I'm outraged. It's humiliating. From one black woman to another, I wasn't on the board. I didn't have any decision making. But from one black woman to another, I understand, and it's not okay. It's unfortunate that you got caught in the middle of this WHCA fight with the Trump White House. I am here to tell you I'm sorry. I apologize.
The White House Correspondents' Dinner just canceled the comedian, Amber Ruffin. Now, you guys know this is something that every year a comedian gets to go and just roast all the politicians. We all love to see this. It's free speech. But I guess free speech is not here. And I mean, I thought Uncle Elon was saying, yes, comedy is illegal. The left is making comedy illegal. Well, it seems as though the right is actually making comedy illegal. I don't know if you guys remember one of my favorite comedians, Michelle Wolf. I've been lucky enough to feature for her a bunch of times, and she, I think, has one of my most favorite correspondence dinners set ever. She just roasted everyone, and it was so smart and so brilliant. So I think there's a sad day in free speech and comedy that it shows that this administration can't take the jokes that the American people want to hear.
Yeah, so I find it to be hilarious how now all of a sudden liberals claim to care about free speech and comedy, right? I mean, these are the same people who quite literally wanted to cancel Dave Chappelle for making jokes about trans people, okay? So I don't want to hear from these people talking about, oh, this is against free speech and that conservatives are hypocrites, because I don't think there's any conservatives that are calling for Amber Ruffin to be canceled, right? I don't think it's fair to say, oh, Trump wanted this comedian canceled because he's afraid of jokes. I don't think that's what's happening here. And part of the reason why I say this is because Trump has never attended one of these dinners in the first place. So I'm pretty sure Amber Ruffin is the last person on his mind when it comes to this dinner or anything having to do with this dinner, because I don't think he's going to go, right? I don't think he ever planned on attending. So again, I'm not sure what the White House Correspondents Association is trying to accomplish with firing Amber Ruffin, but it's not going to do anything to make Trump happy, right? I'm just saying. I think that the White House Correspondents Association made this decision on their own, right? And ultimately, if they want to see it as folding to Trump, then, hey, you can see it that way. But I don't think that President Trump demanded for her to be canceled. That's not what's happening here. So without further ado, let's react to The View. Okay, they're upset. They're going to boohoo, whine, and cry about the White House Correspondents Association canceling this woke black comedian.
I'm not 100% interested in being like, ha, you're here. Look at your stupid head. You're burned. I care, like,
You're kind of a bunch of murderers. I mean, so like they were like, you need to be, you know, equal and make sure that that you give it to both sides and blah, blah, blah. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be freaking doing that, dude. I think it's just that burns on Trump hurt badly. And then it trickles down to everyone who's around him because y'all also guilty. So I think they got their feelings hurt. And they want that false equivalency that the media does. They want that. It feels great. It makes them feel like human beings. But they
Yes.
shouldn't get to feel that way because they're not.
You know, it's a funny thing, free speech.
Yeah.
What do you think about the decision to drop her?
So at first, I thought the White House Correspondents Association were being a bunch of cowards, but then I watched that. And the most important thing that journalists need to do in this moment is be able to show that they can objectively, without fear or favor, cover this administration. And objectively is the key word. And for a lot of Americans, when there's record high distrust in the media, if you have them sitting in a room with somebody who basically said, Trump administration officials are subhuman, there were a bunch of murders, it adds to distrust in the press. It comes off as a kind of a tacit endorsement of what she's saying. And I think it's an important event to highlight good journalism. My worry is without having a comedian altogether, that will fall by the wayside and fewer people will tune in.
Why would
but
you
I
even
actually
go? I go for the funny part.
I actually support the decision, and I worked with most of the people in the White House Correspondents Association. Eugene Daniels is a very serious journalist, and I think it was actually the prudent decision.
Okay.
I disagree. I mean, it just seems to me that when you capitulate and give in to a bully, that bully will continue bullying you. It's like the schoolyard bully. You know, if he takes your lunch, one day he's going to take your lunch again. And so this White House has taken control of the White House Correspondents Association, many of its duties, including who's going to be in the press pool. Now they're rearranging the seats in the briefing room so that legacy media is going to be in the back and some right-wing podcaster is going to be in the front. I think that you stand united as a press corps and you do things that you've always done. I mean, this has been an association since 1921. And when you talk about false equivalency, there is a false equivalency. She's a comedian. She's not a journalist. And I think that it's a time-honored tradition. And I think, I know Eugene Daniels very well. I think he made the wrong call. I think he capitulated just like Chuck Schumer did.
Right.
You know, I'm very...
Yeah, she is a comedian, allegedly, but she's really a political activist, right? And those are two different things because she made it very clear during that interview explaining why she got fired that, hey, I am not going to come in and make jokes about both sides, okay? I'm going to come in and just start attacking the Trump administration. She made her feelings very clear about the president and his administration. She feels like they're subhuman. She feels like they're murderers and that she is going to make her comedy set a political attack, right? That is what she said. And they said, hey, we don't want you to do that, right? We want you to actually, make jokes about both sides, actually do comedy, okay? And she was like, no. And that's why she got fired, right? That's why she got fired. Now, again, the fact that they picked her in the first place, it really shows you how far left and Trump deranged the White House Correspondents Association is because she should have never been picked. She's not funny. She's one of these DEI comedians that is being propped up by these multi-billion-dollar media outlets because she's a black woman, right? And we have to make a way for black women in comedy, right? That's all it is. I've never heard this woman say anything funny. I guarantee you, most of you haven't heard of her because she's not funny, but she's been on all of these liberal media outlets, right? And most people still have never heard of her because she's not good. So she should have never been picked. She should have never been picked. So again, I don't know if they got cold feet or not, but this is not a free speech issue. It's not a free speech issue. It's about, okay, are you the right fit, right? Are you the right person to do this set? For this set, we need you to make jokes about both sides, right? We need you not to turn this into a Trump deranged propaganda attack session. Please don't do that, right? We need you to actually at least appear to be, not Trump deranged. Appear not to hate the administration, right? We're supposed to be having dinner over some jokes, okay? We're not supposed to turn this into a political attack, which is clearly what she was going to do. Now, what is the reasons for why you would want a comedian to not turn into a political activist at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Well, it's not about how the president feels about it. It's about the audience and the viewers, right? This is something that's going to be televised and people are going to watch it on television. And when you have a Trump deranged propagandist that is doing quote unquote comedy, but yet she's just sitting up there and attacking the president, then you're turning off half of the country, right? The White House Correspondents' Dinner is supposed to be an event where families from both sides of the aisle, right? People from both sides of the aisle can come together, sit down, and enjoy some jokes about politicians, right? About our current state of politics, okay? Again, it's not supposed to turn into, again, a political attack session, okay? Yes, you're going to roast, both sides back and forth. Yeah, you may roast the president and focus on him a little bit more than everybody else because he's the president. Nobody has a problem with that. But it's a difference between that and just making this some Trump deranged, quote unquote, comedy session, right? Where it's nothing but jokes about Trump the whole night, right? Which, again, are just attacks because that's what she's going to do. So, it's just so funny how the left, they're trying to make this a free speech thing. And it's like, first and foremost, where's the evidence that the Trump administration had anything to do with this woman being canceled? This was a decision by Eugene Daniels, right? A black gay guy that runs that association. So they can't even cry racism. They can't cry racism over this because a black dude is running the organization that canceled her. So they can't even say it's racist. At the end of the day, she didn't meet the requirements. She didn't, right? The requirements were, hey, you got to be fair, right? You have to both sides your comedy because that's what it's about, right? It's not about just attacking Trump. And she said no. And they said, okay, well, you can't do it, right? What's the issue? I don't get, they can easily find another comedian. Any comedian would be better than her. So I really don't understand what the controversy is here, okay? She just didn't fit the job requirements. It happens, right? It happens.
Very disappointed. I'm very disappointed, first of all, because Amber Ruffin is really funny. Also, because Amber Ruffin is a black woman and queer. And I think these are communities that feel that we're being erased, that, we're under attack. And so I think, having her there would have had a great significance. And also because this doesn't come in a vacuum, right? It comes after attack on the press. Right. And after we have seen media capitulating to him and corporate America capitulating to him and law firms capitulating to him. And so I think it's very disappointing to see all of these institutions bending a knee and giving in to the bully that is never going to give up bullying you because you've just emboldened and legitimized them. And it goes back to your point. We can't look at the institutions. We got to look at the people. Because everybody else in the institutions, academia, media, all of these things are afraid, but the people are the ones that have to show fearlessness and that have to guide us out of this very dark time.
I know that the White House Correspondents Association is separate from the administration, but I'm guessing in general you don't want to blow the place up when you show up. I was surprised they invited a comedian because his presidential run, Donald Trump, started as a joke was made at his expense by President Obama at the time. I just don't think this is an administration with a lot of sense of humor. So I think in hearing kind of the direction she was going, this wasn't going to be a fun, like throwing it out at everyone in a room. That's why a lot of comedians work as hosts when it comes to Oscars, and they go after everyone. I would prefer it to be funny, and it sounds like this was going to be like a tinderbox. So,
well, and we should note that the Trump administration's boycotting the dinner. They're not attending. And also Eugene Daniels, the president of WHCA, is a black gay man himself. So there is representation that is going to be there. He'll be chairing it and emceeing the event. But they're saying on journalism rather than the comedic event.
Again, Amber Ruffin should have never been chosen in the first place. She's not funny. She's a political activist. She's not a comedian. Ultimately, she decided that she wasn't going to meet the requirements. And, people are upset, but you can't be upset with the Trump administration. You got to be upset with the White House Correspondents Association because this is not about bending the knee to President Trump. At least it shouldn't be about that, right? I mean, if they chose to do it to quote unquote bend the knee, that's on them, right? But more so than anything, she just wasn't the right choice. Not for what the event is supposed to be. The event is not supposed to be a political attack on the president. It's supposed to be a lighthearted comedy session that, again, both sides can sit down and enjoy. Both sides can't sit down and enjoy a comedian who's going to do nothing but attack one side the whole night, right? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, hey, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that, you know, they honestly made the right choice by not having her do it. I don't think the president should show up, to be honest with you, right? It's neither here nor there if he chooses to show up. But I don't think this comedian is really going to have all that much to do with whether or not he chooses to show up. We didn't know if he was coming before this happened, and I'm not sure if this changes the decision. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.